Today's video is all about Pokemon card quality. Now here's a question for you. Do you feel it's gotten worse? Through Scarlet and Violet era compared to, say, Sword and Shield era. We're going to explore that very question in this video with some pretty hard and fast facts and data, I think. But before we do, I just wanted to say it is Boxing Day here in Australia. Go the Aussies in the Boxing Day test. Probably Christmas Day in America for all the American viewers, so Merry Christmas, everyone. I hope you got yourself a few things. I got some gifts, Paradox Rift, both Elite Trainer boxes, which was really cool. Didn't expect those under the Christmas tree, which was nice. Another thing I'd like to say really quickly, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. Click on the subscribe button. You're not going anywhere. The Pokemon videos are going to keep coming. Anyway, onto the topic at hand, right? So, what has happened to Pokemon card quality? Is it better? Is it worse? We all seem to have opened Scarlet and Violet, particularly sets like maybe Paldea Evolved or Obsidian Flames, and gone, that is way off center. Or, man, that has got some bad factory nicks inside it. And we expect it from maybe opening some older packs because, they've been tossed around or kept in storage for 20 plus years, and even opening, and if you sat them there or moved them here or put them in this garage or put them in that attic or that shelf, something shouldn't be quite right about it. But, for modern cards, shouldn't they be good? Let's have a look at it, right? And this is how I want to measure it. And you might have some different ways of measuring card quality, but I think this is a very non-subjective way, because you could look at cards and go, nah, crap, look at nah, crap. But I think this is a very factual way of looking at it. And here's how I want to measure it. All I'm doing is going total PSA submissions and total PSA 10 returns for a set, and looking at the percentage of 10s to total submissions. I think that's a pretty good indicator of the card quality. You could disagree, but I think it's a pretty good indicator. So we're going to compare. I'm almost breaking into three sets, right? But it's all Sword and Shield and all current Scarlet and Violet, minus Paradox Rift, because there's hardly any returns yet. I'm sure there's a heap of submissions to PSA, but not many returns just yet. So we're going to look at all Sword and Shield and the first four Scarlet and Violet sets. Now, with Sword and Shield, I almost want to break it down from trainer gallery sets onwards, because you'll notice a bit of a difference there as well. So let's get started, right? Base set. Here's what I mean by how the equation is going to work. And I'm going to go through heaps of numbers and it's all going to be really quick, so listen in, I suppose. Base set, 42,214 total submissions, and 28,625 of those came back as 10s. Okay, that's 68% 10 ratio compared to total number of hits or total number of cards submitted. You get it. It's nice and easy. The maths is not complicated in one iota. So 68% come back as 10. So you could argue that's pretty damn good quality. And as they should, like I was saying before, like using the example, these haven't been played with. These are just, most people these days, straight out of the pack, straight into a sleeve, straight into a hard case, off to PSA to submit. So it's straight from production, basically straight from the production line, straight to PSA, straight back to your house. Second set is Rebel Clash, 23,098 total cards submitted, 15,501 have come back as 10s at 67%. So you're pretty much bang on the same as base set. Now, you'll notice though, there wasn't that many Rebel Clash cards submitted. Was it short printed compared to the other sets? Well, yeah, it was printed a little bit less. Darkness Ablaze, this is when the printers really started stepping up at the start of COVID. 80,063 total submissions for 57,473 10s. At 72%. So card quality was good. Or people were bored at home and just submitting to PSA. Vivid Voltage, arguably the heaviest printed Sword and Shield set, 179,824 submissions with 102,496 10s, 57%. Champions Path, 84,575 total submissions, 56,624 10s at 67%. You're getting the trend, right? A lot of them around the high 60s. Shining Fate, 72,979 total submissions for 49,101 10s at 67%. Okay, you're getting the trend. Battle Styles, only 20,060 PSA submissions. And I want to touch on that in a second, with 11,851 coming back as a 10 at 59%. Why does Battle Styles have less PSA submissions than any other Sword and Shield set? Was it printed less? Was it because people were hanging out for sets like Chilling Reign, Evo Skies and Celebrations on the way and not wasting money on Battle Styles and leaving it on the shelf? And therefore it was not being massively reprinted because, I suppose Pokemon Company realised people's attention wasn't going towards it, so it was going to be harder to sell for them? Maybe. Is it because there's less hits inside the set? As in, you've really only got, the Urshifus in the old arts, the Empoleon alt art, you've got that Sleeping Tyranitar alt art. So was it because there's less hits inside the set, so less people were sending them off because they're like, well, what's the point? What's the point of sending a $5 card off to, get a PSA 10 and it worth being, be a $45 card? Just pointless compared to Evo Skies, which has like 40 or 50 hits inside it, and people were sending them off to get them graded. Could be another reason that's got less pop. Next one, Chilling Reign, 44,084 submissions, 27,608 tens at 63%. Evo Skies, the big one, 125,742 submissions, 80,222 tens at 64%. Celebrations, you've got obviously the set plus the classic collection, and this is a small set, keep in mind. 140,000 submissions for 87,000 tens at 67%. Okay, so now we move on to trainer gallery sets, but you'll notice roughly that first sort of 2/3 almost of Sword and Shield era, you're sort of sitting around 65 to 67% PSA 10 returns. So for every 10 card or every 100 cards you're sending off, 67 of them are coming back as 10s. Like, that's pretty damn good printing quality, I would have thought. Like, you've got the 4 criteria, the corners, the edges, the surface, the centering. To get all that perfect, I know there's some small margins of error. To get it pretty much all perfect is good quality. What's interesting though, from these trainer gallery sets onwards, like Brilliant Stars, which had about 110,000 submissions with 57,000 coming back as PSA 10, you drop to about 52%. Fusion Strike, 49,610 submissions at 28,074 tens at 56%. You're starting to see a different sort of trend now. Astral Radiance, 48,305 submissions, 26,972 tens, 56%. Pokemon Go, 53,834 submissions for 27,363 tens at 51%. And the worst performing Sword and Shield set, Lost Origin, 68,724 submissions, 34,624 tens at 50%. We haven't touched a 4 yet, but 50%. Silver Tempest, 69,169 submissions for 40,823 tens at 59%. And finally, the last Sword and Shield set, and what a banger, Crown Zenith. It hasn't even been out a year yet, but 141,574 submissions to PSA, 81,990 tens at 58%. So you notice what I mean by that sort of trainer gallery, Galarian gallery, sort of later third of Sword and Shield era. You're down in the mid-50s or even early 50s as a PSA 10 return compared to the high 60s for the first. So what changed there? I don't have the answers, but I'm posing the question, what changed there? It's really interesting while you're going through this just to look at the total number of PSA submissions as well, because we can use that, and I'll talk about that at the end. Now, this is the big one. Like I was saying, we've all opened Paldea Evolved, Obsidian Flames, Scarlet Violet Base, 151 and go, this is rough. So how does that compare to Sword and Shield? Scarlet Violet Base, 44,710 PSA submissions already, 18,504 coming back as a 10. It's only 41%. Compare that to Sword and Shield Base, it's 68%. And I don't think as a whole, people's behaviour have changed. It's, straight from the pack, straight to a sleeve, straight to a hard sleeve, straight to PSA. Second Scarlet and Violet set, Paldea Evolved, 23,774 submissions, 9,253 tens at 39%. So we're still dropping. Obsidian Flames, check this one out. 28,985 submissions already, 9,278 tens at 32%. 32%. That's like way less than half of something like a Rebel Clash or a Darkness Ablaze. And finally, 151, already 44,577 submissions, 18,504 PSA 10 returns at 41%. So already with Scarlet and Violet, we're hovering around the high 30s as a PSA 10 ratio compared to mid to high 60s for Sword and Shield era. So we're getting half the returns in PSA 10s as what we were for Sword and Shield. Like, yes, there's been a few changes. Okay, we've gone to the silver border. There's some new foil patterns. There's things like special illustration rares. But as a whole, has it changed that much to cause that much of a massive difference? card quality has really dropped on English. So what does that mean from an investment standpoint? If we put our investment hat on, so to speak, what does it mean? Well, first of all, it's just interesting to look at total PSA pops from each set, because it gives you a couple of guides. It gives you a guide for a rough guide maybe at the print run, but probably a bigger indicator of the number of hits inside the set, because people have got to want to maybe get a return off it or want to think it's a good card. Like, that's why Crown Zenith has pumped huge numbers already, because it's got that massive Galarian gallery which people are sending off to get graded. Whereas you could argue, like I said before, something like Battle Styles with only 20,000 submissions doesn't have that many cards that people want to send off to PSA. So is it a good indicator of print run? Yes and no. Like, you could sort of take it with a grain of salt. Is it a good indicator of the number of hits inside a set? Yeah, more so. What else can we take from it with this lower print quality from Scarlet and Violet with our investor hat on? I suppose it's a bit of a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because we're getting less 10s come back, but we're also getting, less 10s as a whole. So, like, does it make, yes, it makes it harder to grade a 10, but then there's maybe going to be less in circulation. But then print run also comes into the equation. So I don't know, is it a good thing or a bad thing? I think I'm yet to come to a true conclusion on it, but I thought I'd just run through the numbers to show you guys the massive difference. Like, that's, I think it's clear as day that Scarlet and Violet print quality is less than Sword and Shield, or worse than Sword and Shield. Feel free to argue with me otherwise, but that's my position on it. Hope everyone's had a good Christmas. Like I said, catch everyone next time. I'm Michael. This is PokeOz. Ta.